Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries. On February 28, 1856, sailors aboard the packet ship Germania spotted a small, open boat drifting in the North Atlantic. Inside, beneath a layer of frozen seawater and 4 rigid corpses, a single frostbitten hand was still faintly twitching. To understand how this lone survivor ended up drifting in an ocean graveyard, we have to step back a month to the docks of Liverpool, England. Here, the John Rutledge, a 1,600-ton American wooden packet ship, was taking on cargo for a winter crossing to New York. The manifest listed over 120 passengers and 30 crew members. Below deck, large families of Irish immigrants were fleeing the lingering effects of famine. Above deck, 22-year-old Thomas W. Nye, the son of a prominent New England maritime family, worked as a common deckhand. This map illustrates the specific hazards standing between them and the American coast. Right off Newfoundland, the warm Gulf Stream collides directly with the freezing Labrador Current. This thermal clash generates thick, blinding fog and pulls massive Arctic icebergs straight down into the primary shipping lanes. 1856 proved to be an exceptionally brutal winter. The Labrador Current was pulling down towering bergs and massive chunks of glacial ice, flooding the route with obstacles that sailors could only detect by sight. This combination of economically trapped passengers and extreme geographical hazards set an inescapable trap. They were heading into a choke point with no way to communicate with other ships and no warning of what was waiting in the fog. On the morning of February 20th, the John Rutledge was navigating blindly through the mist. The impact wasn't a clean strike. Instead, an underwater spur of a massive iceberg caught the wooden hull beneath the waterline, tearing a grinding hole into the ship's hold. Freezing water rushed into the cargo bays. Passengers and crew worked side by side on the manual bilge pumps, desperately trying to push the ocean back out. But the leak was too massive. By morning, the bow settled deep into the water, and the captain gave the order to abandon ship. This diagram shows the brutal math of mid-19th century maritime law. There were over 150 people on the sinking deck, and exactly 5 small, open lifeboats available to save them. In the chaos, boat number 5 was lowered into the freezing spray. 13 people managed to scramble inside, including Thomas Nye, the ship's mate. As they pulled away, they took inventory. They had a few soaked biscuits and exactly 1 gallon of water. Boarding that boat merely traded a quick death in the hull for a slow 9-day execution on the surface. Behind them, dozens of people remained on the deck as the John Rutledge slipped beneath the waves. The first night on the open ocean stripped away their defenses. Temperatures dropped well below zero, and freezing spray coated the boat's interior in ice. During the struggle, a passenger fell on the boat's only compass, crushing it and leaving them completely adrift. This medical schematic illustrates the onset of severe hypothermia. To protect the vital organs, the circulatory system constricts blood vessels in the extremities, shunting warm blood into the central chest cavity. The hands and feet are sacrificed first. They freeze, lose sensation, and eventually turn black from frostbite. Within 48 hours, their single gallon of fresh water was gone. While the cold was agonizing, thirst acts on the human body with aggressive speed. Surrounded by millions of square miles of water, their throats began to close. Looking closely at the cellular level, we can see why drinking seawater is lethal. Because ocean water has a higher salinity than human blood, osmosis forces the fresh water inside your healthy cells to rush out in an attempt to dilute the salt. Your cells literally shrink. As the brain cells dehydrate, the body enters a state of neurotoxic delirium. The kidneys shut down trying to filter the sodium load, and the brain misfires, causing vivid hallucinations, violent mood swings, and a complete loss of rational thought. Thomas Nye repeatedly warned his boatmates not to touch the ocean water, but the biological urge to drink eventually overrode logic. Several of the passengers scooped seawater into their mouths, breaking their minds long before the cold stopped their hearts. By day 5, delirium took hold. One crewman, his brain poisoned by salt, flew into a sudden violent rage, attacking the others before collapsing and dying. William Henderson, a father who had risked everything for a new life, suffered the same hallucinating frenzy, tearing at his wife's hair before passing away in her arms. After the violent outbursts, a heavy silence fell over boat number 5. Without the physical mass to generate body heat, the toddlers and teenagers passed quietly in the night. The surviving adults, too weak to move the bodies, were forced to leave them where they fell. Nye managed to keep his sanity. Nye realized he was the only thing still breathing. He sat upright, paralyzed below the waist, amidst the frozen, open-eyed corpses of the 12 people who had boarded with him. The cold was only the backdrop to a total erosion of human sanity. Nye waited in silence as the elements methodically deleted his companions one by one, until the boat was defined entirely by physical and mental collapse. This brings us back to Day 9 and the crew of the Germania. Spotting debris through the heavy ice fields, the captain altered course, bringing the massive ship alongside the small, silent lifeboat. The sailors tied ropes to Nye's skeletal frame and hoisted him onto the deck. He was stripped of his iced clothes and slowly thawed by the ship's doctor, a grueling process that ultimately saved his legs from amputation. The Germania spent time searching the surrounding waters, looking for any trace of the other 4 lifeboats that launched from the John Rutledge. They found absolutely nothing. The other boats and everyone in them had vanished entirely. Out of more than 150 people, Thomas Nye was the solitary survivor. He was the only person left on Earth who knew exactly how the ship went down. The winter of 1856 claimed over 800 lives in the North Atlantic. Nye returned to his home in New Bedford, Massachusetts, recovered from his frostbite, and resolved to never set foot on the open ocean again. When his account hit the press, it exposed the deadly flaws of 19th century maritime commerce. Public outrage over the lack of lifeboats and safety regulations sparked the first major outcries for reform, conversations that would eventually change maritime law. The Atlantic kept the rest of its secrets. It absorbed the ship, the cargo, and 149 lives without a trace, leaving only one man to carry the heavy, freezing ghosts of the John Rutledge.